Hello, here's my spoiler-free ranking of the books I read in October and November. And at the end of the video, we will update the top 10 list of the year to see if any of these new books make the cut. So starting off in October, I read The Zombie Survival Guide by Max Brooks. The idea of this one was more interesting for me than the actual execution. You get exactly what the title says, a survival guide with lists of recommended equipment and just pages and pages on different survival strategies. It got boring pretty quickly, though I did enjoy the end of the book, which was more in the style of World War Z stories. Overall, though, I'll rate it as just not for me. Next, I took a long train ride and brought two sci-fi books with me. The first was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, and the second was All Systems Red by Martha Wells. I know The Hitchhiker's Guide is considered a classic, and I did like it at first, but the humor was just so quirky, just constant quirkiness. And I know humor is subjective, and unfortunately this was just not doing it for me, so I did drop it. So I turned to All Systems Red, really hoping to like it because I had another couple hours to kill on the train. Thankfully, I really enjoyed it. The concept is about a security robot that travels with scientists to distant planets and protects them from whatever dangers are on that planet. This robot has hacked his governor module and is now independent and basically has a consciousness. So he continues to do his job so the humans don't suspect that he is any different. And the only problem is that he is extremely socially awkward and he doesn't really understand human culture. So it's pretty funny to see him navigate that. There's also a mystery and adventure that the story turns into. I thought this was a really refreshing concept, and as soon as I finished it, I put the next few books in the series on hold at my library. 4 stars. The next book I read was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is the best-selling crime novel of all time, and the concept is that 10 strangers are lured to a house on a private island in the UK. One by one, they start dying in mysterious ways, and they realize someone there is trying to take revenge on them for things that they've done in the past. Now, the question is this maniac hidden on the island somewhere, or is this person one of the 10 strangers among them pretending to be scared? So just the mystery and tension of the book was so palpable, and I'm really impressed that it was published in 1939 because the concepts feel very modern. I'll rate this at 4 stars. The next books I read were Artificial Condition, Rogue Protocol, and Exit Strategy by Martha Wells. These are the sequels to All Systems Red, and they are all very short novellas. In fact, combining all 3 would be about the length of one average book. I did like them, though it started to feel repetitive since all of these books have a similar formula. I would recommend saving them as a palate cleanser between larger books instead of reading them back to back with each other. So I'll put them all at 3 stars. Next, I read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. This is more of the classic whodunit like Sherlock Holmes or Columbo. A famous detective comes in to solve a murder, and it's really interesting to see the small details he picks up to find the culprit. I definitely like the story, though I think I would enjoy seeing it as a play even more than a book. I'll put it at 3 stars. Next, I read Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is a classic swashbuckling adventure with a kid finding himself on a journey with a bunch of pirates. This was such a fun read, and I'm amazed that it was first published in 1883. I'm on the fence if this should be 4 or 5 stars, but I'll give it 5 stars for now. And shout out to the Muppets Treasure Island movie. Great movie from my childhood. Next, I read Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. This is considered one of the quintessential Western novels in the same vein that Dune is for sci-fi and Lord of the Rings is for fantasy. If you can only read one Western book, this is probably the one to choose. It's about a group of cowboys traveling from Texas to Montana with their herd. On the way there are outlaws running from sheriffs, battles between settlers and Native Americans, and extremely realistic character development. Of all the books I've read, this is the one I've most felt like I understood who the main characters are. Some potential downsides. One is that the book starts slowly, 30 pages in, and I was just not feeling confident that I would finish the book. It's a big commitment at over 800 pages. Another potential downside is that some sections can be quite violent and sad. Definitely a content warning is needed for this book. Overall, this was a very moving, heartfelt adventure, and I'll put it at 4 stars. I next read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. This was a lovely classic story to read after the heavy Lonesome Dove book. It tells the story of 4 siblings during World War II traveling to the English countryside to get away from the bombings in London. They end up having a charming adventure in a fantasy world, and the vibes feel so similar to The Hobbit to me, and it makes sense since Tolkien and Lewis were close friends. 4 stars. The final book I read was the biography Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. This is a realistic portrayal of the history of Jobs, and I think it does a good job showing the amazing stories of Apple while also showing his flaws as a person. He had a huge impact on many industries, from computers and smartphones to the movie industry with Pixar. Definitely a fascinating read on the history of these companies. 4 stars. Okay, we made it. Here's the top 10 list as of 2 months ago, and we definitely have some additions to make now. First, we'll move Shoe Dog down to number 7. I'll add All Systems Red at number 10, and Then There Were None at 9, Lonesome Dove at 8, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe at 6, and Treasure Island at number 5. So that's the top 10 list as of November. Let's see if any others make it on before the end of the year.